That guy is kind of a stiff by comparison, isn't he? Anybody here watch Steve Colbert at night? A couple of nights ago, you may have seen another shorter endorsement, surprise from a guest. And was it Colbert or was it Daily Show? Whichever, there was a guest, and he started from nowhere talking about his depression and how this same technology had made an enormous difference. But that's not actually what we set out to do with this. Transcranial magnetic stimulation became possible in the late 80s, and because I like to build things, I went ahead and built one. And it became immediately obvious that it required way too much power. I'm a neurologist. We like to map what different parts of your brain are doing, and this is a great way to do that. We especially like to map which side of your brain is doing the talking. Often because we're planning to cut something out and we don't want to find out later that we cut the wrong place. But it was immediately clear that to map things like language in your brain, which, by the way, is harmless and fairly painless. I've had it done about a dozen times myself before it seemed like a good idea to quit. It was going to take a whole lot of power. To be precise, every pulse that you heard is about the power of a cardiac defibrillator. And to do useful things, we have to do that 10 times a second for a while. And the power requirement meant that the coils would literally melt. So you had to do something about it to make it practical. So we're going to show you another very short video. This takes place in the front of our house, outside. You'll see in a second why it is outside. It shows a magnetic stimulation coil with a piece of aluminum sitting on top of it, and I'm going to fire it at about the same power as a single pulse with that particular coil. You start? I'm going to do that again in case you blinked. It'll run one more time. Anyway, we wanted to kick out that much power 10 or 20 times a second. We had to do something. So specifically to try and map language harmlessly in the brain, we were able to get funding from joint Georgia Tech Emory projects. I had a collaborator from Georgia Tech who did the heavy theoretic lifting of actually just putting a simple iron core in a coil of wire. This is slightly smaller than the prototype. And that would sound trivial, but there are actually big technical problems in doing that with sufficient power. But it worked. It made this much easier and more reliable to do for mapping language, which is a tiny application. But about that time, other people were describing using this for depression, and it was immediately obvious that we might be able to make that more practical at about the same time. This Office of Technology Transfer came into existence and started working deals, and now 600 installed magnetic stimulation units later, tens of thousands of people have been treated, and I'm very happy to say that for a lot of them, it's made a big difference in their lives. I'm very grateful that you guys came along at just the right time. I was very lucky with accidental timing. I was lucky that OTT is there. I told Todd earlier that I have some feelings similar to Ernie, and I would like to stage a cage fight one day between OTT and the Conflict of Interest Committee, which appear to be working in counter purposes to each other, but not tonight. Tonight, let's celebrate what you all have done. Thank you.
That was the day that I gave up. That was the day when I cried uncle. That was the turning point for me. That was when I realized, February 2009 is going to be my new life. When I tell you that no one could be more surprised than I was to end up in an emergency room due to a self-inflicted drug overdose, trying to kill myself, I mean, that's an understatement. I was the most surprised. There was no reason in the world for me to want to die. I had everything. And yet, I woke up every morning wishing I was dead. I was officially diagnosed with depression, serious depression, when I was in my late 30s, early 40s. I had a doctor, a psychiatrist, who was prescribing this drug, and then this drug, and then this drug, and I called it the medication merry-go-round. I would try this medication, I'd be on it for the 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it was. I'd go back to him and I'd say, not only do I not feel better, I feel worse. I didn't know that the drug had stopped working. I did not know that I had developed a resistance to it because I had been on it for so long. My sister, Maria, happened to be in a doctor's office going through a local magazine, and there was a full-page ad, "Treat your depression without medication." It was a miracle. I look at it as a miracle.
We devised a way to use my experience in what kind of electromagnetic coil would be best at actually stimulating focal parts of the brain. And we were able to design this thing right here, which is our very first prototype. This allows transcranial magnetic stimulation with about 1/4 of the power and 1/8 of the heat that was previously required, and is still required for all magnetic stimulators that don't use this particular technology.
And it's that electrical stimulation based on the magnetic pulse that then wakes up the brain. And that, when those neurons start talking to each other because they've been awakened, they start delivering the neurotransmitters that you need to feel happy. I really knew I was feeling better when I caught myself laughing. We were out with some friends and I went, I just laughed. That was huge, considering how low I had been just 6 weeks before. My life is redefined. It's almost like the reinvention of Martha. And that's a great feeling. That's a great feeling it's like having a second chance to be alive.